So thank you very much, Sri Kirti, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, I wanted to start really by saying that I'm very grateful to Sri Kirti for the opportunity to talk about my practice. And actually, in talking about my practice, I'm talking about my life. And this is very much going to be a personal talk, so there's not going to be any teaching in this talk. This is going to be very much my personal experience. And I love personal talks. I often find I get more out of hearing someone's personal experience of how they're applying the Dharma in their lives, often than when I'm hearing a teaching. So I'm hoping I'll be able to impart something of interest and of use this evening. And a personal talk for an order member, I think, on their sadhana practice is possibly as personal as it gets. Yeah, so you might get a little bit of more of a glimpse from what I'm going to say this evening. So Sri Kirti's already talked about sadhana and how we quite often associate it with just this visualization and mantra recitation practice. But for me, over the last few years, it really has become an integral part of my life, and almost my practice is my sadhana, and my sadhana is my practice. And I quite like the one of the translations of sadhana as the means of accomplishment. So I kind of quite like that. So what am I going to cover? Well, I'm going to talk about the involvement of what I call my sadhana, and I'll say more about that as we go on, and also what's significant now. And I say now because that process has unfolded and it evolves. So I can talk about the elements of that practice that are really key to me right at the moment. So, so where did it start? So where does this exploration of sadhana start? For me, as for many of us, it started with the Sthiranāga Refuge Tree. And so this is an image, beautiful image by Aloka of the Refuge Tree. So some of you will be very familiar with the Refuge Tree, and I'm not going to talk at length about the Refuge Tree, but on the tree we have teachers of the recent past. So our own teacher, Sangharakshita, and his main teachers, and some influential figures around our movement. Of course, we have the Buddha at the center with the Buddha of the past and the present. We have the Aryan Sangha, so those enlightened disciples of the Buddha. We have the Bodhisattva Sangha, and some of you will be familiar with Bodhisattvas, and we've talked about some of that during this series. And then we have teachers of the past, so teachers from China, Japan, India, Tibet, who have all kind of influenced our tradition. Then above them we have these very colourful Buddhas, known as the five conquerors, the five jinas. So we have a golden yellow one, a red one, a white one, a blue one, green one, and above that Vajrasattva. And I can remember in Mitra study when I first saw this, and some of us who were studying Mitra study were talking about this, and someone said, yeah, I really love those, the historical ones, but like, what's the blue one all about? I mean, what's going on there? I mean, whoever's heard of a blue person? And I can remember chuckling along and kind of thinking, yeah, that does seem a little bit odd. Guess where my initial attraction was drawn? Yep, it was drawn to the colourful Buddhas sitting just below Vajrasattva. So here we have them in a mandala, Amitabha at the top, and then the green one, Amoghasiddhi, Ratnasambhava, the yellow one, Varochana in the middle, and then Akshobya sitting right at the bottom. And it was Akshobya who caught my eye. So this is again another image of Akshobya from Aloka, which is in the Padmaloka shrine room. So it was quite ironic in a way that I ended up being, you know, inextricably drawn, I think, to Akshobya. And actually, I remember a conversation with Shrikirti. I think it was a retreat at the old Vajrasana, and we were out on a walk, and I was talking about, I think he probably asked me one of those questions about my inspiration, and I was rattling away, and I remember him turning to me saying, "That sounds a bit like Akshobya," and I thought, oh, that's really interesting, and that's really what that put some energy into investigating a little bit about Akshobya. So I'm going to say something about that. I'm going to say something about how that changed at the time of my ordination, and also how it's unfolded. My connection with Akshobya has unfolded over the last few years. So where did I go? I went to this book, which is one of Vasantra's wonderful books. So Vasantra's written some great books on bodhisattvas, female deities, a number of the symbols from the Vajrayana tradition. And in here, there's quite a lot about those 5 conquerors. And I equate that time with the first level of wisdom. So that's the level of wisdom of hearing and reading. So I started to read up on Akshobya. I started to understand and look a little bit, look into what it was that, why I was kind of attracted to Akshobya. And then in the book, there's these great, there's this fantastic sort of table of all the associations of these Buddhas with things like a time of day. They have an animal associated with them, an element. They work in different realms. And what I realized was the time of day for Akshobya is dawn, and I'm very much kind of an early person. The element is water. As quite a few of you know, I like to spend as much time as I can submerged in the sea or in any water, really. The realm that Akshobya is associated with is the hell realm. And again, some of you know, just over 15 years ago, I was an alcoholic, and I definitely had my experience of being in the hell realm. The other thing that was interesting was the mudra. So this is the hand position that Akshobya, or that all of the various Buddhas adopt. So I'll come back to that and say a little bit more about that later on. So there's a limit to this form of wisdom. There's a limit to how much we can really take on board, and how deeply that permeates when we're just reading or maybe listening to talks. So the next phase of wisdom is thinking and reflecting. And where that really took off was when I went to Gukyaloka. So I went to the retreat center in Spain for my ordination retreat for 4 months. And I just can't overemphasize the significance and the importance of doing that, of actually going all the way to Spain and cutting myself off effectively from the rest of the world for 4 months. And it was certainly a challenge in terms of actually going there, of actually being able to get there. So my son was 16, he was still living at home, he was just about to start his A-levels. I'd never been separated from my partner for more than 3 weeks. And even in those times, while I was regularly visiting India for work, even in those times we had mobile phones, we had emails. So I also missed some significant events. I missed my son's 17th birthday. I missed our 25th anniversary while I was away. But there was something, the pull of the 3 jewels was irresistible to me. There was no way I could not have gone. And I put a lot of care into how I looked after my family when I was away, or how really I got others to look after my family while I was away. So where was I when, I'm just going to show, when I had my private, during the ordination period, this was where I was living. I was living in this little tent. And at the time of the ordinations, there were 20 of us being ordained, and a lot of preceptors flew over to Spain to carry out the ordinations, and there wasn't enough accommodation. So some of us were asked if we would move into a tent. So I jumped at that chance. So I lived in this little tent for several weeks with my fellow ordinand, Padmajaya, who I was ordained with. He's from Sweden. And this is kind of where a lot of the magic happens. So this is where I returned to on the night of my, after my private ordination. And this is the little shrine I had inside the tent. So here there's some quite significant items. And I was very taken with, a few weeks ago, Shakurti in this series was talking about building a shrine and the things that you can have to just start to kind of connect your inspiration. So here we have on the left a postcard of Akshobya, a picture of Akshobya on his elephant. So the elephant is the animal associated with Akshobya. On the right is Lochana. Now Lochana is the female Buddha, who again is inextricably linked with Akshobya. So that's Lochana. There's a Vajra sitting in the middle, and I'll say more about the Vajra. There's a little mirror on the left-hand side, and again, I'll come back to that. They're all symbols that are connected to Akshobya. And there are two rupas, two little rupas. The black one at the top, my son gave me when he went on a school exchange to Thailand a few years beforehand. And the little golden one is the one that that is an Akshobya rupa, and that was given to me by my private preceptor when I was ordained. So I'm just going to give you a couple more little snapshots of my ordination process. So this is me receiving my kesa in the shrine room at Gukuloka from Artapriya, who is my public preceptor. So that's the first time I wore my kesa when I was given that. And the last one is of myself and Bodhivanksa, my private preceptor, and Artapriya, my public preceptor. And I wanted that picture because Bodhivanksa is incredibly important for this talk. So you might be wondering where I'm going with this talk now, because sounds like I've gone off on some sort of reminiscence and drifted away from the subject a bit. But actually, Bodhivanksa is very, very significant for me because he was the person who gave me the Akshobya visualization and mantra recitation practice as part of my ordination, private ordination. So that's the second level of wisdom, which, as I say, I started to really explore during the time of my ordination retreat. And then I want to move on to the third level of wisdom, which is the level of wisdom through meditation. So after ordination, I then started my daily practice of that visualization and mantra recitation practice. And that's certainly been enhanced and developed over the last few years by going on sadhana specific retreats with Vasantra. I've been very fortunate to have gone on several retreats with Vasantra and also Prakasha, who have really opened me up to the depths of that practice. And I think in the early days, there was very much a sense of me willing something to happen, wanting Akshobya to kind of, I don't know, appear or something. And like all meditation practices, what I have found is that if I put or apply an inappropriate level of energy, I'll either become very tight and very distracted and frustrated, or I may, without the right level of energy, I'll start to just become bored. And in a way, that application of energy, and I'll say more about energy in a minute, that application of energy is really important for me, because if I don't get that right, my mindfulness of breathing doesn't really go anywhere. My metta bhavana drifts off or gets stuck. So I needed to remember that. I needed to remember, in a way, those sort of basics of working with meditation to actually start to get some depth into the sadhana practice. And one of the things that I've really noticed, and again, this holds true with the other meditation practices, is that one of the strongest experiences for me is that sense of getting myself out of the way and not it kind of interfering. So there is definitely an element of letting go for me in terms of that that practice. And as Sri Kirti said earlier, there's a real spiritual death element in terms of that the whole ordination process, but also for me for the sadhana process. So it's getting out of the way and allowing something else to come through. And I like to think that there's this golden thread of the Dharma. And I think it's that golden thread that drew me towards ordination, that compelled me to go to Spain. You know, I had to deal with all the difficulties around leaving and going away for 4 months, but there was nothing I could do about that. There was something that drew me on, and I think it's that golden thread. It's that same golden thread that's helped me out and continues to help me out when I have bumps and I have dukkha in the spiritual life. And you know, I think some of the dukkha in the spiritual life is possibly tougher than if you had wandered around in complete ignorance all your life. So spiritual life dukkha is tough stuff. So I find that that golden thread is what ultimately is, you know, when I've almost given up and there's an element of despair about things in my life, and that's happened to me since ordination. I've suddenly realized I'm still connected to this golden thread, and I just need to hold on to it. I just need to reconnect with it. And for me, that golden thread is inextricably linked to Akshobya. So I see where that golden thread goes. Another thing that's happened, probably happened a couple of years ago, is that I started, again, this was after a Vasantra retreat, I decided to write a prayer. So I have a prayer, and in a way, it kind of calls on the qualities of Akshobya. It's a way of trying to connect with the qualities of Akshobya. And I say that prayer every time I sit. So I say that silently every time I sit down. So whether that's at I'm going to do some shameless advertising now, the 7 a.m. meditation class that we run here at Colchester, or the 8:30 class that we run, you know, whenever I sit down to meditate, the first thing I do when I close my eyes is I recite that little prayer. And it's just a little prayer that I've written. But it doesn't stop on the meditation stall. So as Sri Kirti said in his introduction, there is this idea of the sadhana being really expansive. And I wanted to talk about three elements of connection and engagement that I currently have with Akshobya. And these are all to do with symbolism of Akshobya. So the first one is the mudra. So I mentioned earlier the mudra. So this is the Bhumi Sparsa mudra, and I've always been drawn to this. So most of the rupas in my house have Bhumi Sparsa mudra, and I just love the whole story of Siddhartha at the threshold of enlightenment, being challenged by Mara of how dare he sit here on the diamond throne, on the seat that had been sat upon by Buddhas of previous aeons, and him just very calmly touching the earth and calling the earth goddess to witness. That's always moved me, that story, and there's something about that. And for me, that gesture speaks of a supreme confidence. And confidence has been a battle throughout the whole of my life. So I really have struggled with confidence. So of not feeling good enough, of fear of failure, of fear of letting people down, of fear that I'm just gonna yeah, I'm not going to be able to deliver what people need, or what I've said I'm going to do. So that's a very it's a very important gesture for me, and the connecting with that level of confidence through that mudra is a way that I've found has helped me to connect with being less anxious, and being able to sort of tone down that level of anxiety I have about my lack of confidence. So the second one, I should say about the previous slide, I'm just going to go back to it. Those of you who have got eagle eyes may recognize that this is obviously the very lower half of the Rupa at Vajrasana in the shrine room. So you might have recognized that. And this is also from the Rupa outside the shrine room, the beautiful Akshobya Rupa that floats on the pond just before you go into the courtyard for the shrine room. So this is the golden Vajra, which Akshobya holds. So I'm not going to, again, I could do a whole talk on Vajras, but the Vajra is the diamond thunderbolt. So it's got the hardness of a diamond, with all of the energy of a thunderbolt, and it cuts through delusion. And for me, again, the Vajra has an energy about it. So energy is also something that I've discovered over the years is something that's very important to me. And this energy, the energy that I think Akshobya wields in a way through the Vajra is an energy that's stable, it's dynamic, and it's creative. And that's my sense of Akshobya's energy. Now, again, in Sri Kirti's introduction, he did sort of allude to the fact that I can be a little energetic with my activities. And I certainly have a lot of energy, but it's not always stable, and it certainly isn't always used creatively. So again, this is it opens up another whole working ground for me of how do I harness that energy, and how do I use that? How do I master energy in the way that Akshobya has? Okay, and the last one, I'm just going to say something about that before I bring up my last image. The last one is Akshobya's wisdom. So Akshobya is known for his mirror reflecting wisdom. And that was always a little mystery to me. And it's one of the things I found about the sadhana practice is that there are certain aspects of Akshobya that I'd either forgotten or just simply never knew or didn't pay attention to. And they've emerged in my meditation practice. They've emerged as part of that whole life practice of sadhana. And one of these is the mirror reflective wisdom. And what I'm gleaning from that in recent times is that this is the ability to really reflect back to others in terms of communication, in terms of engagement, but without adding my own stuff, without embellishing with my own stories, without my own views. So this brings me into that whole space of letting go of views, which at times feels incredibly difficult, almost impossible. And the image, interestingly, the image I love, and this might be slightly left field here, but this is the image that works for me in terms of that mirror reflecting wisdom, because part of that mirror reflecting wisdom for me is stability. There's something incredibly stable about being able to reflect back without distortion, without embellishment. And stability is something that I really get from this sculpture. So this is a sculpture by Barbara Hepworth. It's you can go and see it. And in fact, next week when I'm up in Yorkshire, I may well be taking a little extra detour to just go and have a look, one more look, because I've seen it several times. This is Barbara Hepworth's Cone and Sphere. It's in the Hepworth Wakefield, which is a permanent art museum of her work. And for me, there's something about it that represents stability, and yet almost impossible stability. But then there's also this something about potential for movement. So it's a mystery, like a lot of the sadhana practice is. So I wanted to conclude really just by saying that this is how my practice is unfolding right now. And if I gave this talk a year ago, it would be very different. If I give this talk in a year's time, I'm sure it will have evolved or changed, because it's a process that's unfolding like everything else all the time. So I wanted to show an image to finish, because I want to show an image which really sort of suggests that this is possible for anyone embarking on a spiritual path. And I think our journeys can unfold regardless of the figure that we choose, to have alongside us a figure to help us plumb the deep and mysterious depths of this incredibly fulfilling life. So this is my final little image. And in the very short time that I've been engaging with Akshobya, I really think I've only just started to explore what's above the water. And at times I do get a glimpse, and it's usually during meditation, that there's a golden thread of the Dharma that's leading me towards much more. And that for me is what the sadhana practice has given me. So my active practice is to continue to just let go, to get out of the way and allow something else to emerge. And when I do that, when I can do that, on the occasions I manage to do that, I just get a sense that I'm deepening my connection with Akshobya.